Thank you, Laura, and good evening to everybody. My name is Sundar Ramaswamy, and as president of the Monterey Institute of International Studies, it is my distinct pleasure, and it's great to see a great turnout, and welcome you all to tonight's reception marking the opening of this week's Conference on Religion and Gender. Thank you all for coming. I know some of you have come from far away and some from not so far away, but nevertheless, I know that we're all looking forward to a fascinating 2 days exploring these vital social, economic, and political issues. For those of you who come from outside, take our views that the views from here on any other time when it's not daylight savings is spectacular. So you have to just come back and see the bay from here. The conference, which will offer a very strong group of panelists and speakers presenting both deeply personal stories and very practical examples of conflict resolution in action, will also serve to mark the official launch of the Center for Conflict Studies at the Monterey Institute. The center's unique mission, bridging research and practice to better understand and manage conflicts and to transform inequalities and social injustices, is something that you'll hear about in more detail shortly when I introduce the center's founding director, Dr. Pushpa Iyer. For my part, I simply want to express our great enthusiasm for the center's mission and its establishment here at the Institute. Our students have always had a very strong interest in the field of conflict resolution. Whether the particular degree they are seeking is in international policy studies or public administration, or one of the 10 other master's degrees we offer, all of our students are people who want to make a difference in the world and who instinctively search for ways to quote, unquote, be the solution. I also want to mention that the Center for Conflict Studies is joining a notable roster of research centers at the Institute that includes the renowned James Martin Center for Nonproliferation Studies, the Center for the Blue Economy, and the Monterey Terrorism Research and Education Program. We are proud of each of these centers and the value that they hold for both the students they help to train and the policymakers who help to benefit from their research. Like these other research centers, the Center for Conflict Studies will provide our students with the opportunity to engage in hands-on projects, accomplishing the meaningful work in the field while at the same time enriching their academic experiences and augmenting their professional credentials. The center's work both complements and supplements the Institute's existing academic programs, providing space for students, faculty, scholars, and practitioners to examine critical global challenges and identify opportunities and strategies to effect positive change. With a particular focus on developing tools and skills to resolve conflicts and peace building in post-war societies, the center will offer a certificate program for students wanting to specialize in conflict resolution, as well as research fellowships and the opportunity to work on research projects and collaborative efforts with other nonprofit organizations in this field. And now, to elaborate on this train of thought and offer you more details about both this weekend's conference and the new center, I would like to introduce the founding director of the Center for Conflict Studies, Dr. Pushpa Iyer. Before coming to the United States for her PhD studies, Pushpa worked on development programs in the state of Gujarat, India, where her commitment to bringing peace between the divided Hindu and Muslim communities laid the foundation for her subsequent work in conflict resolution and peace building. She has consulted for a variety of non-government organizations and institutions, including the World Bank, and her work has taken her to India, Sri Lanka, the Philippines, among others. Prior to joining the Monterey Institute faculty, she taught courses in conflict resolution as an adjunct faculty member at George Mason University, where she received her PhD in conflict analysis and resolution. She also holds an MBA in international management from the University of East London and a bachelor's degree in law and commerce from Gujarat University, India. As a professor of international policy studies at the Monterey Institute, Pushpa teaches a variety of courses related to conflict resolutions, particularly focusing on cultural, religious, and gender issues. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce the founding director of the Center for Conflict Studies at the Monterey Institute, Dr. Pushpa Iyer.
Thank you, Sundar. It is my pleasure to invite all of you this evening to what is undoubtedly a very special moment for me, both in my career and in my time here at the Monterey Institute. I came to the Monterey Institute straight after completing my studies in conflict resolution. I was hired primarily to teach in many subjects in the field of conflict studies. I always thought I was so lucky to find the job that was actually in my own field. I was not a professor of international relations. I was not a professor of political science or sociology. I was a professor and a program chair of conflict resolution. I was here to build a program. I was here to build a program for the students in this field. I jumped in with both feet and found that there were no barriers to my creativity, to my passion, and to my energy. I was encouraged all the way through, and the conflict resolution program, in a span of 3 to 4 years since I got here, was a solid specialization track for students interested in the field. I am a practitioner. I have years of experience working among the poor and marginalized in India. I became an academic, a researcher, when I pursued my doctoral studies in the field, and I became a teacher when I got this job. But I do identify myself as a social activist first and foremost. It is my passion, my activism, and my commitment that drives every issue I work on. The Monterey Institute, as part of Middlebury College and under the leadership of President Clara Yu, and then later President Sundar Ramaswamy, of which I have been a personal witness to, has grown and has become more established and known as a school for policy. In the midst of many structural changes that came with this integration, all of which I saw as positive, also came the decision to eliminate conflict resolution as a specialization track. I, however, saw the elimination of the track as an opportunity. My activism drove me to finding another way to deal with the absence of a formal track. I wanted a dedicated space to pursue my passion, my commitment to this field. I started the Center for Conflict Studies in May 2011. In a year with students who are equally passionate about the field, the center has had many achievements to boast of and many interesting ideas taking shape. The annual conference series was one such grand idea. Here we are. A year later, in August 2012, the center became officially a part of the Institute, and today you are witness to its grand inauguration. It has been quite a journey, and it is lovely today to taste the sweet success. I have big hopes and plans for the center. Strengthening the program academically is one, but I also want to do what I've always done in my personal career, and that is to bring theory, practice, and research together. Our conference furthers this goal by bringing together scholars and practitioners. A warm welcome to all of our esteemed guests. I do have a lot of people to thank for being with me in this journey, and I'm confident that they will stay with me as I continue to build the center. First and foremost, I would like to thank Sundar for his kind words today, but also for all his work and his initiative in making this center a part of the Institute. I would also like to thank him and Varna, who as friends have been very supportive and encouraging of all my work and ideas in these past few years. Thank you, Sundar. Provost Sands, who's not here with us in person, but in spirit, is another supporter I found along the way. I'm very grateful to her. Dean Yue Shi regrets his absence this evening, but he sent me his congratulations before he left and to say that he's very pleased that we would be working more closely together on some of the issues that I work on. I have people from many other departments in the Institute who have helped me in many ways, but there are too many to name, so I hope you will understand that I thank you from the bottom of my heart, every one of you, my colleagues who have supported me all through. However, I must mention the staff of Institutional Advancement very specially. Jason Warburg, Kenley Butler, Erin Morita, Eva Goodbastorter, who have promptly and efficiently dealt with the aspects of CCS, the Center for Conflict Studies, integration into the Institute. In particular, Linnae, without whom we would still be scrambling to get these events set up and make them flow smoothly. And in the same breath, I must also thank the staff at the Marriott, especially Blanca Urban and Amanda Mitchell, who began planning with us over 6 months ago. Thank you, Blanca. And last but not least, I must say a big thank you to Kathy Joyce. Thank you, Kathy, who shares my passion. I'm convinced to get the center up and running. Her encouragement, work, and ideas are all part of the foundation of the center at the Monterey Institute. I would also not be where I am today with this center without the guidance of my advisory board members, 2 of whom are present here today, Joseph Bock and Karen Osborne. Thank you both. The groundwork for my scholarship in this field lies in the School for Conflict Analysis and Resolution at George Mason University. I have so much to thank my professors for, one of whom is here today, Sandra Schalderling. Thank you, Sandy. And I also want to thank Father Cedric Prakash, who is responsible for my career here as a practitioner. The board of IF Integrities, many of whom are present over here, and I can't see you at this moment, I don't know where you are, but thank you very much, because in the center's first year of existence, it was IF that remained, that was our fiscal sponsors. Oh, there you are. IF was our fiscal sponsors, and you will always remain a part of the history of this center, so thank you. And now for my students. I could not have done all of these in this past few years without my students. And most often, everything I do is primarily, if not the only reason, is their careers, their education is what I look for all the time. And so I want like all the CCS interns to stand up, please, so we can acknowledge you. And of them, 5 of them who are the program committee, the organizing committee for the conference, who are present here. There's one who's not, but they have been working very hard on this conference for the past year. And if look around, if you see them, they are the ones you should go to for the next couple of days if you need anything. And I cannot end this without thanking the alumni who are present here. Will the alumni stand up, please? Conflict resolution alumni. Yeah. Many of them are part of the center, and some have traveled as far as from Boston and Washington, D.C. and L.A. to be here with us this evening, just to be a part of these celebrations. I'm really pleased about that. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, everyone, again for coming. And now comes the real program, which all of you are probably waiting for, is to listen to our keynote speaker, Hauwa Ibrahim. When I started planning for this conference, we were looking for a good keynote speaker, somebody who could really come here and set the tone for everything we wanted to do, both as a center, but also the conference in itself. And I kept looking for, different conferences to find, that ideal person. And everywhere I looked, Hauwa's name kept popping up, and it was like, we have to find a way to get in touch with her. And so I just wrote her an email, and there began the whole process of Hauwa saying, yes, she would be very willing to come and do this. I'm very honored that you accepted our invitation to our very first conference, what will become an annual conference. Thank you for coming. I also met then Hauwa when I traveled to Boston, which is where she is teaching at Harvard, and she has since become a personal friend. It's lovely to get to know you. So Hauwa Ibrahim is a senior partner at the Aries Law Firm, working as a lead attorney with a team devoted to the cause of human rights for women in Nigeria. She has won a number of precedent-setting cases before the Islamic Sharia courts. Ibrahim has been a visiting professor at St. Louis University School of Law and Stonehill College, a World Fellow at Yale University, a Radcliffe Fellow, and a Fellow at both the Human Rights Program and the Islamic Legal Studies Program at Howard University. She's currently a visiting lecturer at Howard University. Hauwa adopted an interdisciplinary approach to delve into the theoretical foundations of Sharia law and examine how they've influenced legal practice, which has in turn affected the human rights of women in West Africa. Her research led to a book manuscript, Practicing Law in Sharia Courts, 7 Strategies, which is currently with the American Bar Association for publication. The European Parliament presented Hauwa with the 2005 Sakharov, if that's the right way to pronounce it, Prize for Freedom of Thought, which honors individuals or organizations for their efforts on behalf of human rights and freedom. Hauwa has earned an LLB and a Master's in International Law and Diplomacy from the University of Jos in Nigeria, a BL for Legal Practice from Nigerian Law School, and a Master's of Law degree in International Studies at American University's Washington College of Law. In addition, she has been awarded 3 honorary doctorates, as well as the Cavalier Award, the highest human rights award from the Italian government. It's a real pleasure to have you here with us, Hauwa. We are very honored again, and please, welcome.
Thank you so very much, Pushpa, for the generous introduction. And thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor. President Sander, the Montreal Institute of International Studies, the Center for Conflict Studies, especially Dr. Pushpa, and the chair of this conference, as well as the director of the center. You are a veteran as a conflict resolution person and also a peace builder, and I read a lot about you too. I want to thank the staffs and students and organizers, especially the donors that allow us to come here. This afternoon I had a lunch with Father Parska and John and Joseph Abok. And if there is anything I want to tell you today is, if that is just a piece of what is going to happen in this conference, you are in for a treat. So next 2 days is going to be really exciting from the panel I saw and from what is coming up. So if you can, please come over. They are just amazing, amazing people. And for all of you, what an honor to be here. I'm really delighted and honored that you have me here, and you have a beautiful city and a beautiful people. I was working with Pushpa around the institute. Everybody was opening door for each other, and oh, hi, hello. It felt so warm and so great, and I'm so delighted to have the experience. Now, Pushpa asked me to speak more about what was a manuscript when I gave her when they were giving my introduction, but now a book, and we have the book right behind you. And she asked me, speak about your work. And so if you do not mind, I'll speak from my heart. And I don't have anything to read, because if I read, I'll send you to sleep. But before I do that, I want to make some few disclaimers. The first one is, as you could hear by now, that English is my 5th language. So if I murder English, you have to forgive me. I did not learn English in the classroom. I learned English by hearing people speak it, and I pick it up. The second one is, actually, I'm not an Islamic scholar. I'm not. And I'm not a political philosopher. I'm just a lawyer. And I will speak a little bit of my reflections and my practice in the law court. I decided to speak generally about 3 broad issues, and if I'm not breaking protocols, I'll be happy to take your question. I'll take few questions if time permits, and I want to speak to what you want to hear rather than what I want to tell you. So please prepare for some thoughts or questions if you want to ask at the end of the day. Let me start by telling you that I became educated by accident. And I became a lawyer by accident. At the age of 12, I was given in marriage by my father, which is actually the culture of where I come from, which is in northern Nigeria. I guess I'm also teaching at Harvard now by accident. But this accident has helped me to sort of move from one step to the other, and I'm sure a lot of us have better stories to tell about where we come from and where we are. I want to put who I am within the context of what I have done. But for you to understand a little bit of it, maybe I should give you a tip, which I'm not going to do justice to this issue now about my country, Nigeria. Nigeria is in West Africa, for those of you that know or don't know. It has 170 million people from the last time we checked it out. It's a diverse country. It's beautiful, but pretty diverse. You have the north and you have the south. You have the Muslims and you have the Christians. And you have those ones that don't believe in any of these two religions. We also have a lot of challenges. And we were British colony until 1960 when we got independent. Now, I'm mentioning this because I want to link it with my work. Now, from 1960 to 1999, we've always had a legal system, actually 4 legal systems that had worked in the country. We have the common law, we have the Sharia, which is limited to civil matters. We have the customary law, which is codified, and we have the traditional laws. Now, what happened in 1999 after a long time of independence was the military wanted to hand over power. They have been leaders, military leaders in the country for so long. So in 1999, they wanted to hand over power to civilians. And one of the governors contested on one issue, among others, that if you elect me, I'll give you Sharia. And he was elected and he delivered. So Sharia that was introduced in 1999 in northern Nigeria in 12 out of 36 states, in the northern part of Nigeria, was a campaign promise delivered. And that is how it came in. I had been a lawyer in the Ministry of Justice. And at that time, I was a prosecutor for 8 years, left prosecution and started a legal firm. And I've been a lawyer for the past 23 years this year. So I was called upon in actually end of 1999 about a case that we took in 2000 of barrier by an NGO. And that is how I came into the Sharia cases. I was invited to form a team to help with the first Sharia case. And I came in trying to put a team together, and we could talk about how the process goes about if you want to hear in Q&A. But I put on a team with local lawyers, with local mullahs, and opinion leaders. And that is how we started the first case. From 2000 to 2008, when I came to Radcliffe, actually to date, because I was in Nigeria in August for some cases under the Sharia, I have handled over 150 cases. And I do all these cases pro bono. I do not take money for what I do. And if you want to know more, I will talk to you about it later. So I do the cases pro bono. So now I want to put this also within the context of what I have done, which is what I'm speaking about today. How do you practice Sharia? Now, remember the topic of our conference is gender, religion and gender, identity, conflict, and power. So how do we sort of grab this? And I want to tell you from this perspective, but I'll end up by telling you some narratives and some stories of what happened during the cases. But the 7 strategies that I'm speaking about is strategies we put together while we were defending those cases. And that is the subject of today. But before I say this, I want to pull in together some issues that I discovered before the strategies came into place. Now, when we started those cases, a lot of issues just came to us, just on our face. And I've had some of these issues I'm going to mention to you subsequently after we finish the cases. We have about 8 to 9 issues, and I'll just mention them by passing, and we could talk about them in Q&A. I was asked several times, is Sharia, what is Sharia? What is it all about? How does it make sense for in 2000 that you want to stone a woman because she has a child out of wedlock? It doesn't make sense, does it? Do you really have supremacy of the law? What law are you operating? You have 4 legal systems. What law are you operating under? Sharia, common law, or customary or traditional? But do you really have separation of powers in your country? Do you have separation of religion and state? Is there respect for fundamental human right of a person today? Or is it degrading to stone a woman today in my country? Do we have certainty under our laws? Or is there independence of the judiciary? So these are some of the few questions that I had to contend with, and I could talk to each one at a point, whichever one that you want to know a little bit more. But these are some of the questions that we are pulled into as we take each case. But my task today is to tell you the strategies we use. Now, it's important to know beyond the bigger picture, there is a smaller picture. And the smaller picture for us as lawyers is one case, one day, one time, one issue. And we will not lose focus on that. So our first strategy was first to understand the dynamic of Sharia. To understand the dynamic of the culture of the Sharia, how it came about. To understand the dynamic of the mullahs, of the court judges. But beyond understanding the dynamics, how do we work within those dynamics? So it's beyond understanding. How do you work within people that disagree with you vehemently? That is strategy number one. Understand the dynamic, but beyond it, work within it. And some of you are students here. I don't know what your dynamics are. I don't know how you navigate working within your dynamics. But it was an asset to know what your dynamics are. And beyond that, to see the possibility of navigating within it to get some solutions. Our strategy number two was to have a focus. Some of you that might have known these cases of women sentenced to die by stoning under the Sharia because they are pregnant out of wedlock attracted a lot of international attention for different reasons. You remember the 9/11? Some of you that are here. Immediately after the 9/11, I'm sure a lot of searchlight went across these people that look at things differently and interpret things differently. And it was about this time that we had the Sharia cases. So we had a lot of press, a lot of cameras, a lot of microphones. And it could be a distraction. And what is our focus? We had a woman sentenced to die by stoning. And what we have is law. That is our tool of trade. And what we did was to use the law to defend her, to get her freedom, to get justice and fairness and mercy. Within the Sharia law, not outside the Sharia law, within the Sharia law. And so that is our focus. So how do you have a focus and how do you stay focused? For us was a strategy. Our third strategy is how are you firm and flexible? It sounds like an oxymoron. How can you be firm and flexible? How can you be firm on principles of law? How can you be flexible within societal understanding? At times you get to a society in a village. They say something, but they really mean something. The ability to decipher what they say and what you hear. You know much more, some of you that are on the field. But you must possess that ability to be firm when it comes to principles of law and to be flexible when it comes to the society, understanding of what you do. Number 4 is how do you pay attention to details? Some of you that know we were in the courtroom and we're always under threat. We are anti-Islam, we're anti-Sharia, which means also we should be stoned to death. How do you pay attention to detail but not to join issues? You can't afford to join issues. You can't afford to be detracted. How do you pay attention to detail was another strategy that helped us immensely. The 5th strategy is the ability to plan. As you know, we walk in and every single day we are not sure when we walk out of our houses whether we are coming back home. But you must have a plan, though. You must have a plan to win, and you must have a plan to live. So we have sort of a 4-stage strategy of planning. Plan number 1, I was a former prosecutor. Like I said, I was a prosecutor for 8 years. And for students that are here, I want to say, I don't know what your plans are, but this is how we work our own. We had a plan A, we had a plan B, we had a plan C, and we had a plan D. Our plan A is to sit down and look at the case of the prosecution and pieces the case of the prosecution. And plan B is to plan our defense. And just in case we lose on our plan B, can we introduce a plan C, which is a fallback plan? And this is not legal, something more sentimental. How do we include some rhythm process into our discourse in the courtroom? And plan D is an exit plan. And some of you that have read some of the cases, we always had an exit plan from the courtroom. We don't come out through the courtroom after cases. We are always looking for the back door to run away. We cannot afford to come to the front of the door because we cannot show any face whatsoever. If we show emotions, they will interpret it differently. The 5th plan is know the law. For some of you that are aspiring to be either lawyers or work in the human rights regime, I say this to students. Know the law. Eat the law. Breathe the law. Live it. That is a way forward. If you know it, nobody can take it away from you. You think 2 to the ratio of 1. You are always ahead because you know. Some of you might have known that I was not given audience in the courtroom because I'm a woman. In the Sharia court, women do not speak. And so I had to pass papers through men. But why did I become the face of Sharia? It's because I know what I was passing. And the people that take the note will not be able to answer what question was on the note. So you get to know. We cannot afford to photocopy and be somebody else. We just have to know. And know beyond. And if you know beyond, you are better off, and that is our strategy. Always be ahead of whoever you're dealing with, especially in some of these cases. It's a strategy that had added value to us. And the last strategy is, how do you think global and act local? How do you think global and act local? It's a huge strategy. I'm sure you know much more, some of you on the field, how we could experience the next 2 days a rich mind of strategies of how people have worked on the ground here, and how we take some of this knowledge back home, back to our own constituency, back to our own small corners and our own projects, and how we make it work. Think global, act local, act immediate. But let me try to illustrate this. How do you work within? By just one case. And I'll round it up so that I could hear from you if you have a few questions for me to speak to. In 2002, we were handling the case of Amina Lawal. Amina Lawal was a woman that was 32 years old. She was convicted by a trial court for having a child out of wedlock. And she was convicted on 2-count charge. 1, she confessed to adultery, and 2nd, she had a child without a husband. So for those reasons, she was convicted to be stoned to death. And the stoning was to take place on the 25th of September 2003, and we came into the matter in 2003, because she needed to wean the baby from breast before she stoned. So we came into the matter in 2000 and sort of formed a defense. And usually we have 4 legs of our preparation of general issues. How do we look at the law? How do we look at facts? How do we look at procedures and how do we look at technicalities? So this is how we how we sort of frame our thoughts as we formulate defense. And I spoke a little bit more on the book. But that was not the issue. The issue was that I was too loud at a point. And why did I become loud? I was asked by a reporter, a BBC reporter, just one question. And the question is, Hauwa, Amina has been sentenced to stoning to death, and is stoning to death in the Quran? That was a question. Is stoning to death in the Quran? And I gave just a simple answer. I don't think so. I've not read it. I've not seen it yet. So that was played and played over and over again in the radio, which is our main means of communication, the radio. And the mullahs decided to answer me back. The mullahs are the religious leaders. And they say I was anti-Islam and I was anti-Sharia. And I was paid by the North, by the West to destroy Sharia. What that means is that I too should be stoned to death. So I either live with that or I do something else different. And we are talking about conflict, we are talking about identity, and we're talking about power. They are very powerful institutions. So I decided to call the reporter that interviewed me. His name is Umar Farouk. And I said to him, I heard what they say on the radio, and if you don't mind, I really want to go and see them, to explain to them what I was doing. And he said, you must be out of your mind. You heard what they say? I said, yes, I did. But I really want to see them. I sort of persisted, and at a point he said, I will allow you, I will introduce you, because I wanted him to take me to them, because after interviewing me, he interviewed them. He said, I will introduce you to them, but I will not be responsible for you. He was very gracious. He introduced me to them. I was to go to visit them. For some of you that can see me, I think I am properly dressed. But I am not dressed good enough to enter the mosque. When I was going into the mosque, I have to put some gloves and make sure I am completely dressed. I want to stress one issue here, sensitivity. To whom are we sensitive? To what issues are we sensitive? I went into the mosque with my files. At that moment, I was having 47 cases. I photocopied them and I went into the mosque, completely well-dressed. They chose to see me in the mosque. There were 8 of them. The mosque is big enough to take up not less than 5,000 worshippers at a time. They were sitting at the end of the mosque, and I walked in on the other end, and they were sitting on chairs. And halfway through the hall, there was a chair. I saw the chair when I came in, but I decided to approach them. For those of you that knows, our men dress completely with some turbans. So I walked toward them. While I was approaching them, I decided to kneel down and to sit on the floor. Now, the chorus at the same time, stand up and sit on that chair, they said to me. Now, in my culture, I am not allowed to look at the men on their faces. For some of you that come from West Africa, you know what I'm talking about. You don't look at the men on their face. So I was looking on the floor, and I said to them, how can I, your daughter, sit on a chair when you, my fathers, are sitting on a chair? They were quiet for some time. And when they answered me, they said, are you Hauwa Ibrahim, which is my name? I said, yes, as you please, as I am. Oh, are you the lawyer? And I said, as you please, as I am. They said, you have not forgotten your cultures. I said, You've not forgotten your religious teaching. I said, no. But I say much more. Remember what brought me to the mosque was a radio interview that I granted. I did not make a single reference to the radio interview. I told the mullahs that I'm a foolish lawyer, that I'm a silly lawyer, that I think I am doing something and trying to help this woman and children, but I'm not sure I'm doing it right. And I came to them because I needed their wisdom. And I came to them because I needed their knowledge. That's why I came to the box. Now, after some time, they were quiet, and they said to me, after a very long discussion, we will publicly not support what you're doing, but we'll also publicly not oppose you. Now, this is my dynamic. When I walk into the mosque, I had no any regalia, no any gown of importance. I am their subject. I am their daughter. I am a woman that has no voice. I knew it. What do you operate upon as you think about conflict resolution? What are your tools of trade? Is it humility? Is it the opposite? What are your tools of trade? Is it knowledge? Is it wisdom? What are your tools of trade? I choose humility. I wasn't a lawyer. I wanted them to listen to me. I wanted them to guarantee my safety. And we couldn't have done these cases at all after those first few cases without the guarantee from the mullahs. In some circumstances, some of our allies are the mullahs in most time, but we also do have uncommon allies. And I don't know who are our common allies or uncommon allies. I'll mention just one. I don't know how many of you know the beggars. In our villages, the beggars are not important. They go with their cups or their plates from house to house to beg a grain for the day. They are just beggars, you know. They are dirty. They are leopards. But do you know they are the most powerful people ever? Have you ever thought about that in some of our societies? Who is it that you look down upon? I don't know what you do. You know what you do. Who is it that you look down upon? In our society, we look down upon beggars. But tell you, beggars were the biggest allies we had. Why did they become the biggest ally we had? They are the biggest informant in any society. Remember, we don't have electricity, we don't have radio, we don't have TV most of the time. Because they go from house to beg, they know exactly what is happening in the village. What are your strategies? Who is your ally? We choose to make beggars our allies. And I can tell you several stories on how they have saved us. But when you have an ally, remember the truth with a capital T. When you live a transparent life, it pays. So for us, yes, we had an ally, but we also live a transparent life to be able to solve conflict and help in peace building. But let me finally say that as we look toward the new 2 days of the conference, and I say, if the measure that I had this afternoon is anything to go by, we'll have an issue-oriented conference. It's going to be extremely stimulating. And to me, it looks very targeted to the issues we are going to address in the next 2 days. But I have 2 prayers as we move in out of here. And my number 1 prayer is that as we share narratives, as we reflect on ideas and issues, may it lift our spirit. Together, may we be empowered to go out to do good. Yes, to do good for the powerless, to do good for the weak, to do good for the voiceless, and to do good for the illiterate, which are my constituency. And I'm sure a lot of you, that is what you are working toward and hoping for. May we also be rocks and fortresses to our communities and beyond. In the issues of religion, gender, are mindful of conflicts and power plays as we navigate the waters. But above all, let us know this, that irrespective of our sex, irrespective of our sexual orientation, irrespective of the race we have in this room, and I could see we have many, irrespective of the color of our skins, irrespective of our privileges, whether we are rich or poor or not in between, there is one force that unites us, and it's a very powerful force. And that force is our human dignity, the worth of our human persons. If we recognize it in each of us, we can go out of this hole and beyond with one anthem, that the world is a better place because of what each of you do, and because of what we are going to do collectively together. I thank you for your attention, and I'm happy, like I said, to take any 1 or 2 or 3 questions that are pressing. I'm grateful to do that. Thank you so much for your time.